Here comes tomorrow, shining with promise, bright, brave new worlds for you to explore. If you don't like it, just hang around, 'cause tomorrow's tomorrow will reset the store. You can fight to turn the tide, try to rewrite, or just take flight, but you can't change the simple fact that it's where all your hopes are hiding. Here comes tomorrow.
Hello, homos, sapiens, and superior alike. My name is Josephine Riesman.
And my name is Becca Petunia.
We are two trans women here to talk about non-binary writer Grant Morrison's Turn of the Millennium comics run with the X-Men and what it tells us about finding joy in a world that hates and fears us. In other words,
here comes tomorrow.
This close. We're so close.
Yeah, we're so close. We'll get it. We'll get it. One day you'll see episode 20 or whatever, we'll get it.
Yeah, when we're doing all the bonus apps, we'll finally get it. No one will notice. So, what are we talking about today, Becca?
We're going to be talking about Some Angels Falling, a one-shot that is issue 131 of Grant Morrison's New X-Men, written by Grant Morrison with art by John Paul Leon and inks by Bill Sienkiewicz. This is a really interesting issue because it's really some breathing room after the sheer chaos that was all of our fun with Weapon 13 we talked about last week. But
yes,
this issue is a little more, there's no real like superhero shenanigans, but this issue focuses a lot on the relationships, specifically Scott exploring his relationship with Emma, and Beak and Angel's relationship, which is developing at this point. Both of those relationships are going to be really important throughout the rest of the series. We already chatted a little bit about Scott and Emma and Beak and Angel earlier in our podcast, but this is where we're really going to get to see those relationships grow, and we're going to get to sort of see what those relationships show us about each of these characters.
And today we have a very, very special guest to discuss Some Angels Falling with us. That person, in addition to being an expert on relationships, is a poet, is a professor of English at Harvard University, the Donald and Catherine Locher Professor of English at Harvard, and the author of the upcoming Taylor's Version, a wonderful book about Taylor Swift that is coming out on October 15th. And that person is Professor Stephanie Burt. How are you, Stephanie?
Very happy to be here, especially since we've just kept our smaller and more active cat safe from jumping off the balcony. He is no longer going to jump off the balcony.
That's very important. Wow.
This is an issue that's kind of about things jumping off of things, so that's very appropriate.
That's true. It was very apropos.
A lot of jumping in this issue. A lot of jumping.
Yeah.
Jumping, falling, flying, soaring, reaching new heights.
This is why you're the poet, you know? You can just do this just right off the dome, you know? All the synonyms. It's great.
Well, the dome was really more of a Phantom X thing, but yes.
Oh, nice. Oh, I knew it was a good idea to have you on. So before we get into the issue in detail, Stephanie, I wanted to ask you a question you were asking us before we started, because I want you to ask us that afterward, but I'm the interviewer right now, so I should start. Of the X-Men characters, who do you over-identify with the most?
This answer is a matter of public record.
Yeah, I was going to say, I know the answer. But
yeah, I know the answer to this too, but yeah. I want.
Oh, I know. I'm saying this isn't like, since before I knew why and before I knew it was happening, I have had the sense that whatever happens to Kitty Pryde happens to me. And I tried not to think about that for a while for obvious reasons and focused on other things. But when something like 15 or 20 years ago, after some time away from our favorite mutants, I went back and read Uncanny 139. I realized that what happens to Kitty happens to me. And I continue to have that feeling. And the points of identification are so numerous as to be a little bit ridiculous. This is someone who's constantly responding to mutant emergencies that do not directly imperil her. This is someone who very much has a haute bourgeois, white Jewish, Reform Jewish suburban background.
Yes.
This is someone who has been very well treated by the adults in her life and who largely, and who has gone right from being the exceptional student to being a teacher and has never known a time in her life, despite her earnest and repeated attempts, when she had a true peer group. Instead, she's always either the teacher or the student or
Mm,
both at once.
yeah.
She's someone who really belongs in a school, even when she's a pirate captain. She's someone who knew she was queer way, way before she could tell the world.
Yep.
She's someone who is bi, which I'm not, and cis, which I'm not, but whose experiences and power set stand beautifully for being trans, which I am.
Yep.
She's someone whose power set and non-mutant skill set and experience stand very, very well for things that I want to do and things that I do and things that I do without especially trying, that have to do with being the inside game, the less confrontational mutant, the speaker to normies, the speaker to cis people,
Sure.
the one who shows up in front of a bunch of people wearing ties and says, no, we're not a threat.
Right. Which is an awkward position to be put in, and also a very Jewish position to be put in.
It it is, and it's specifically a kind of Jewish position that speaks to the presence of American Jews in the academy and in the law,
Yeah.
which is very much
Yes.
my own background. There are other kinds of American Jews, but
But she speaks to this institutionalization, not like getting committed, but like the fact that a whole generation, a couple generations of Jews in just a short period of time did manage to become part of elite institutions, which the Xavier Academy often stands in for. And she was able, you're able to speak to power.
well, that's right. And she's someone who is very good at working within existing institutions
Yes,
and who will do that wherever possible rather than joining a revolution and founding new ones, which is exhausting and sometimes involves not only needless violence, but the elevation of people whose instinct is toward violence. And at the same time, she's protecting younger or emotionally younger mutants.
yes,
Marrow is an obvious example who fight with her
yes,
and who need protection. And that means a lot of weirdness. One of the things I love about her power set is that, as Emma Frost says, Kitty doesn't break through barriers, she ignores them. She is able to move between
mm,
spaces, both socially and literally, where barriers would keep other people, especially people she cares about, on one side or the other. And she has learned to use that, again, the literal power of passing through things
sure,
and the skill set of being able to, make speeches
yeah,
to protect other people who can't do that. And she can't really help being a teacher. And her closest relationships and her two forever romantic partners are people who've been through so much trauma that she has never been through and whose instinct
mm,
is often towards fighting rather than
yes.
negotiating. And that's one of the reasons they make such a good pair. And the answer to Ilyana or Rachel, of course, is both.
Yes, right. The answer is yes.
Yeah, but maybe not in the same room or on
Interesting. You
the
think it's
same.
more of a hinge, that relationship, rather than a full triangle?
I think it's imaginable either way. And if you want the not safe for work content,
Please. Oh, we're all
okay.
about that on here. Yeah, go right ahead.
So there are a lot of reasonable ways to see this.
Sure.
My own sense in terms of what kind of fanfic I prefer to read, and if you want to write it, go ahead and, send me a link or if you find it, is that none of those people are mono. Some people are mono. Rogue is
Yes.
mono. Rogue really needs to be dating one person at a
Uh,
time.
yeah. Oh,
Um,
monogamous. Yes, I'm sorry. I
right.
thought you meant mono, gender oriented. Yes, got
Oh,
it.
no.
Okay.
I mean,
Monosexual as
Kitty
opposed to
also,
poly.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, Kitty also is a cis girl. Her powers
Yes.
stand for transness in beautiful and fairly obvious ways. But when I think about what happy adulthoods look like for Kitty and for Rachel Gray Summers and for Ilyana
Yeah.
Tina, I think that the three of them belong together. And if you
Mm.
want to imagine the three of them together doing not safe for work things, go ahead. I think that when Ilyana and Rachel Gray Summers are hanging out and Kitty's not there, they have a lot of things to do together and a lot of projects. And I
Mm.
don't know that they jump into bed together.
That's very, can I interject here because I love that, by the way. And I'm
Thank you.
glad we talked about that, even though Kitty is not a major figure in the Morrison run.
Or indeed,
Um,
I don't think she appears at all.
Nor is Rachel, nor is Ilyana.
Nor
But
is Rachel, nor is Ilana, nor is Piotr really. I mean, for one thing, by the time if people are listening, still listening to this podcast, they just like the X-Men, so we'll talk about whatever. But you're talking about these relationships, and that's what makes the X-Men, right? Like the X-Men is not a solo book. You can have
Right,
a few breakout characters from the X-Men, but nine times out of ten, it works as an ensemble. It was
right.
conceived as an ensemble, it works as an ensemble.
That's right. And one of the things that I love about the Morrison run as a whole,
Please.
and my friend Tommy, who's Morrison stan,
Mhm.
if she hears this, is probably going to be all over me and be like, that's not fair. That's not the way it works. Morrison is one of the great comics writers of our time,
Sure.
and understands how to do character work, but gravitates towards weird, paradoxical, meta world building stuff
Oh.
and has to have some kind of external constraint, which I think
Yes.
sometimes means a big two editor saying you have to do this in order to focus on character work and to make characters sympathetic. And one of the reasons I think the Morrison run gets better as it goes along, and one of the reasons the only part of the Morrison run that I dislike is the destruction of Genosha,
Mhm.
I know it's Genosha, is that the initial character designs and the new characters who Morrison creates are by and large designed not to be figures of sympathy. They're designed to either be gross or
Mm.
comedically gross, like the mutant who's literal gas bag in a suit.
Right.
But because it's the X-Men, as the run goes along, we end up sympathizing with and interiorizing and thinking about what it's like to be these characters, which of course is the great mission of Victorian realist fiction, which has now migrated into YA and fantasy and comic books.
Yes, is
And by the
identification.
time,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
right, and by the time we get to the issue that we're covering now, Morrison as a writer has accepted that if you're going to write the X-Men well, you are playing in the world that Claremont and Nocenti and Simonson and Cockrum and genuinely, despite himself, because he's a jerk, John Byrne, built.
Yes.
And
Yes.
even before that, playing in the world that I would argue that George Eliot built and Henry Fielding built,
Hmm. Hmm.
in which the point of following a continuing narrative is to think about how the characters work and figure out which ones are like you, how to sympathize with the ones who aren't like you, and how to see why they're doing what they're doing and why it's quite rare for someone to be a complete sociopath.
Right.
And that is the thing that Claremont does with Cape Comics, not first, but best and longest. And by the time we get to Some Angels Falling,
Yes.
a story that does not include Ilyana because she's dead at the time, Rachel Gray Summers because she's elsewhere at the time, and or
Peter's dead at that point.
sure
Peter
is.
is.
Dead as a doornail. Yeah.
I'm so glad that Peter is dead because if Peter were available, Emma, I believe, would not have been in the Morrison run, and it would have been so much worse for so many reasons. Um,
Interesting. Just because of the
yeah.
power set, you think that's why they're interchangeable, or is there a story there
I
I
don't
don't
think
know?
that. Have you read the initial memos?
We've only read the proposal. I take us
Is there
the
additional information?
are
Because
there additional? We've read the
Peter,
proposal that we found
The-
online, but
Peter's not mentioned in the proposal.
yeah, Peter isn't mentioned in the manifesto, but I could be maybe there's something else that we missed. Please tell.
Yeah, my memory of this and my understanding of this is that there is a proposal which is fairly short and an initial document that is available somewhere that tells you what Morrison wanted the first arc to be.
Yes,
Yeah,
the manifesto.
that's what we're talking about, the
That we
manifesto.
talked about that. I don't believe it has Colossus in it. I
It
don't
has Emma.
recall it having.
Okay, I'm certain that the
I can
initial
pull it up.
proposal,
Yeah, here, let me
yeah,
pull it up.
I'm certain that there is a document somewhere in which Morrison wants Colossus and is told that Colossus is dead
Oh,
and
yeah, that wouldn't in this, I
someone
don't
else
think.
has to be the tank.
Oh, here we go. Here we go. I take it back. Morrison did say that they wanted access to Colossus,
Yeah,
but doesn't say anything else about Colossus. It's
Okay.
just
yeah.
briefly mentioned in the list
And
of.
is Emma in there? I don't think she
You are
is.
completely right. They did not include Emma. Well, it
Yeah,
shows what we know. Yeah, okay,
Emma's
great.
Emma's diamond. You know a lot. Emma's diamond powers come about because
Oh,
Morrison
because
wants a tank and Colossus is not available. And it's for me a
fascinating.
very good example of how most writers work better as collaborators.
With editors.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
I agree. I agree, especially in comics and with cape writers. You see it so often, and I think actually Morrison has a better indie hit rate than virtually anybody else, but still, I agree. The vast majority of these writers who do this brilliant, heady stuff, when they're on Cape Comics, they have editors reining them in and they hate it, but it makes for better finished product than if they are given full reign.
that's exactly right.
Yeah, and as a journalist, I'm sympathetic to that because Lord knows, the independent comics publishing of the world of journalism is Substack now and other newsletters where you have people who were great with editors all of a sudden giving you their raw, uncut id, and it's like, oh boy, I think
Yeah,
this was better when somebody was tempering it, you
yeah.
know?
Well, you can use Ghost or Button Down if you don't like Nazis.
Oh yeah, I use button down, but I just meant like most of the writers that I used to read at these places now are publishing on Substack.
I wish they would all move to Button Down or Ghost because
Me
Nazis.
too, me too.
I
It
was
is very frustrating. Ghost now is like even bad. It's like got AI integration or something. But we're
really?
getting far afield. We're
Oh
getting far
So,
afield.
no.
one of the interesting things that I'm thinking about with everything that Stephanie said, which was incredible,
Please.
but, Stephanie, you talked a little bit again about like the choice to have Emma rather than Colossus,
Hmm.
and we talked a little bit about the relationships, and you mentioned, no one has really done relationships better than Claremont, who really set so many of these wheels turning.
Yeah,
But the fact of the matter is something that we have talked about, and I'm sure our audiences are getting sick of me saying this, but in the manifesto, the part that Josie and I did remember wasn't
Yeah,
uh-huh.
that
sorry.
Peter was there, but was that Grant talks about how the characters and their interactions need to come first before any superhero shenanigans.
That's right.
Yes.
And that is so crucial. And it's why it's so funny to hear you and why I was like, I love Stephanie, but she's got to be wrong. Because to me, Emma and Colossus are not interchangeable at all because of what they provide character wise
That's right. They have nothing in common character-wise.
that I wouldn't have even thought
Right.
about
That's the
that.
thing.
Well, they both care about Kitty, but they have still nothing in common
That's
character-wise. Yeah.
true. Other than that,
Emma's better for, well,
And Kitty isn't even in this arc.
well,
Kitty's way off in space at this point or something.
I don't remember because this is after Mechanics.
I can actually tell you where she is.
Please tell us. You'd know better than we would. I
Is
can't
she still at
remember.
Mechanics University?
I'd have to look at the drop dates, but I believe that Mechanics is over and she has returned to the main story with other mutants. Mechanics University, by the way, at that point is the University of Chicago. They've dropped
Correct.
the pretense. Yeah.
It's not actually, no, I don't think it was ever referred to as Mechanics University.
No, it
Only
when
I call it that.
well, I mean, when Kitty first goes to university, it's the 90s and people don't know what they're doing, and they call it Robert A. Heinlein University.
Mm,
And when Claremont comes back and sends her back to school, it is just the U of C, and it's in Hyde Park. And it looks
right.
like the U of C, which is a much better choice.
Yes.
So she is back in the main timeline of Extreme with depowered Rogue
Right.
and
Extreme. There you
Storm
go. Yeah, yeah,
and a
yeah.
bunch of sort of second tier villains who you never see again and Claremont
Right.
characters you never see again. And they're moving back and forth between made up tropical countries and the beach in California. But she's also possibly in space, although she hasn't been launched into space forever yet, because, and I had a conversation about this with the great Douglas Wolk years ago.
Oh, yes. Douglas Wolk. Yes.
The drop dates for the Whedon run between art delays and Whedon being
Uh,
Whedon
yeah.
were so delayed that it is literally impossible place
Reconciled.
to
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
reconcile the Whedon run timeline with everything else that's happening. All the other comics that are being published in the early 2000s at Marvel that include mutants can be reconciled with each other.
Yeah.
But you end up, I believe this interacts with House of M later. You end up with Kitty both alive and dead, Colossus
Right.
both alive and dead, House of M and M Day interacting in a way that doesn't make any sense with the end of the Whedon run. And the,
It was a disaster around the end of the aughts.
well,
The mid to mid late aughts, you had the wreckage of all of this crazy experimentation that had happened under Bill Jemas and Joe Quesada. And in the latter half of the aughts, there's a lot of like, okay, we threw a bunch of stuff at the wall to see what sticks, and now we have huge stains on our walls. And there are some people who think the stains look really cool, but corporate's a little concerned that we're losing, customers. So you end up with a lot of attempts to reconcile things or retcon things or get the mutants back down to a small number. So they're
yeah.
all of this stuff.
But in terms of Xavier's school at this point,
Mhm.
I think the only thing that we can say about Kitty is she's paying for Swan's apartment at this point. She's Karma's sugar mommy at this point. Um,
Well, they
Well,
actually
the
decide not to sleep together. I actually believe her when she says in New Mutant Volume 2 that they
I know, but she does buy the
well, of
apartment
course.
still.
they sought an arrangement and they found an arrangement. Okay, that doesn't necessarily
But
mean there's sex involved. Yes,
Right.
let's
let's talk about Some Angels Falling because
I was gonna say let's get into Some
well,
Angels Falling.
I want to interrogate Stephanie because I want to tell our listeners the reason we picked this issue when we had an opportunity to talk to the great Stephanie Burt was because when I first reached out to you, you said basically without prompting, like, yes, I want to be on, let me talk about Scott and Emma and or Angel and Beak. And then we were looking through all the issues and we're like, well, this is the issue. I mean, it's
Hmm.
all right. You got both of those relationships centered like right up front and center. So I'm curious, what do you make of those two pairings? And how have your feelings about those pairings changed over the years?
They're great. My feelings, I wasn't reading the Morrison run when it came out. I was on my 15-year break from Cape Comics.
Sure.
I was sort of church outed by the prelates in the 90s. Oh my God, did you get that joke?
Yeah, a little bit. Look, okay,
Okay.
I went to Harvard as well. I'm ashamed of it and sometimes, but I know some things. Yeah, anyway, keep going.
Okay. Wait, were you an English major?
No, I was a social studies major.
Yeah, that happens.
It does happen. But anyway, go on.
Someone made you read Milton anyway.
I like Milton. I have my gigantic Milton collection somewhere collected works of Milton somewhere here in this place where I live now. Anyway, we're getting very far afield once again. So you were
So we were talking about the relationships in Some Angels Falling.
tell us about what do you make of Scott, Emma, and Jean Beak Angel?
Okay,
That's what we're
can we
getting
do
into.
this with an opening act and a main act? Because
Please.
feelings about Beak and Angel
Sure.
are smaller and more consistent. I love that. I love that ship. I love the tropiness of it. I love the teen moviness of it. I love the slightly 10 things I hate about you, though not really Taming of the Shrew trope where the hot bad girl who wants to impress her friends because she's not
Right.
nearly as independent of peer approval as she thinks she is,
Right.
but she knows she's hot and she knows she doesn't belong with teachers.
Right.
And this is also racially coded in ways Morrison knows enough to signal but not to lean into. She dared her friends that she can kiss Beak and survive because Beak is gross and nobody wants to kiss him.
Right.
She and Warren correctly think that if Beak gets more confidence, he'll be able to fly, which isn't quite true because when he can fly a long distance at the end of this issue, it's because she's carrying him.
Which is a nice little metaphor.
I was going to say
Yeah.
it is a good metaphor then.
Yeah.
It's a great metaphor and it's a disability accommodation. And it's about
Interesting.
the way that disability awareness and disability activism interact with
Wow.
people's romantic lives. If you are not willing to see stuff your partner struggles with as a disability accommodation rather than something you have to help them overcome, then
That's amazing.
you are doomed to date only non-disabled people, and that's fucked up and it's temporary because we're all going to be
Right.
disabled if we're not.
Right.
I have increasingly, and this is something that's in the Morrison run and in this issue, increasingly, the longer I live the life I want to live, which is I hope, disability aware life and a poly life and a life as a writer, the more I think you're not going to be able to keep the romantic life or the private life that you want unless you become disability aware. You might get it, but you won't keep it.
It's so true.
And so that's part of what's going on with that romance. And of course, Beak thinks, and we as readers the first time through think that this is a love story. And then we discover that Angel was just kind of using Beak to make a point to her friends. And then we discover that we were right the first time because they've fallen in love.
Right.
And it's the story of emotional growth in Beak and of moral growth in Angel Salvatore.
Yeah.
And it parallels with the genders the same and the emotional growth arc surprisingly similar. What we get in the much more complex and grown up, because Beak and Angel is a teen love story with teen pregnancy later, and it's great. That arc, boy thinks he's really seen and loved for who he is for the first time. Hot girl who's about her hotness and her rebelliousness and her bad girl image. Initially does something that's clearly wrong in seducing boy for the wrong reasons. Does fix boy in the way that she intended, but which was undertaken in bad faith. And then realizes that she's fallen for him for real, and now they're a couple, and that's what she wants. And getting involved with him has made her a better person because she's grown and she's learned, and people grow and change. And because open-mindedly dating someone who is really lawful good can make you better.
Agreed.
This is also something that Gwendolyn Harleth thought would happen to her and Daniel Deronda. That's not the way Daniel Deronda works out. George Eliot plug for those of you who want to read long realist novels. But it's what Gwendolyn thinks is going to happen. And it is what happens to Angel. And it is absolutely what happens to Emma, who has not endeavored in that way to fix and take care of and shelter and provide an avenue of freedom for someone who's a grown-ass adult who could be in her dating pool before, ever.
That's a very good point.
Now Emma has been in that position of I'm going to help you grow up and change and figure out what you can really do after a lifetime of repression. She's been in that position before, but it's always been with her students.
Right.
And
She's kind of an inverse Kitty Pryde in some ways, in that I mean, like, especially with like well, I shouldn't say, but I shouldn't jump in. I should let you talk. But I like this idea of Emma as kind of somewhere in the, like, as a teacher, but not quite the king or queen of whatever institution she's in most of the time, you know?
how is that an inverse Kitty Pryde? That just is Kitty Pryde.
Right. Well, I guess you're right. It's just sometimes the moral valence goes more evil for Emma, but
Well, because
you
Emma,
don't see Kitty swing that way often.
no, I mean, unless you count Fall of X, which is a whole different mess. And she's still recovering from it, as we know from the only current X title that everyone needs to be reading, which is Eve Ewing's Exceptional. But
Oh, okay.
there are reasons for this. And they're the same reasons why, now that they are adults who are teachers more often than their students, Emma and Kitty get along so well, even though they fight so much, which is that when Kitty is figuring out how to be a student who's going to grow up to be the assistant principal or whatever, and who has a vocation for teaching,
Right.
Kitty doesn't just have Emma trying to kidnap her and mind control her, and she doesn't just have Chuck trying to turn her into the future and a weapon and a math Olympiad winner.
Right.
Kitty has Storm, and Kitty has
Mm,
Logan, and
yeah.
Kitty has Kurt, who isn't even a teacher. Kurt is just a sympathetic adult.
And Emma's got Sebastian and like all these horrible people around her.
Emma has no experience with appropriate supportive peers.
Right.
And every time she thinks she has one, and this even goes to the wonderful and underrated Emma Frost solo series from the early 2000s.
Is that the prequel one?
Yeah, it's the one that's Emma's early life.
Yes, yes, yes.
It's very good, but no one bought it because it had awful cheesecake covers.
Yep.
Who wrote that one? I'm feeling like a moron. I didn't read it at the time.
It's very good. I can look up the writer has a two-syllable first name and a two-syllable last name. He's very good,
Let's do it.
but
I
he
will
does.
say
Keep talking. Keep
she
talking. I
alludes
was just
she
curious.
alludes to that this series
Yes, she does.
in this issue, Some Angels Falling, right? She
Yeah.
mentions the private school that she used to go to, which is entirely what the Emma miniseries is about, that I
Right.
That's actually a different.
did read, but years ago,
So
years ago.
weirdly, that's a different private school.
Oh, no,
It's about a
okay. You
Swiss.
know what? I'm sorry.
No, she's been to
So we
the
know.
canonically she has to have been to multiple private schools. The private school that she says she's been to, I believe, is a Swiss boarding school where people were cruel to her. The entirety of the Emma Frost solo series, which is by a very good writer who never works for Marvel again. I believe he does like
Carl Bowlers.
yes, he's very,
Bowlers.
very good, but he
Primarily a Sonic writer.
that's right.
Interesting. Oh,
That's
wow.
right. He does
Fascinating.
other licensed properties. I think he's still alive. I don't know what he's doing,
Huh.
but he's very good in that. And that is entirely set in a school and in a family and then in Boston and New York, where Emma goes through a lot of experiences that teach her that she's completely on her own. She needs to use her sexuality along with her mutant powers to be taken seriously in a male-dominated world, and all of her friends will betray her.
I am so excited to read this. This sounds fascinating.
It's kind of about her rebuilding herself in the way, Josie, that we talked about in an earlier episode, where you're like, well, she's
Right.
not actually British, and like it's about Emma kind of realizing what she needs to become.
That's right.
Right.
And if you want American Jewish content there, Emma is absolutely not Jewish. But
No.
the thing where certain American Jews of who are older than us, who are sort of boomers and older, acquire a transatlantic Oxford accent that no one has ever grown up with in
Yes.
their life.
I know. It happened in my family.
Yeah. It did not happen in mine.
Fascinating.
None of them entered literary academia, and the ones who became lawyers and law professors did so after 1965 when you no longer needed to hide your Jewishness in Ivies other than Princeton.
Right.
But Emma acquires the same accent that Anthony Hecht had and that Lionel Trilling presumably had or tried to have
Right.
for the same reasons.
Right.
And the reason that Kitty is seen correctly as sort of the good girl is that she has models for how to be a good adult.
Yes.
But we should
What do
go.
you make? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, we can go back to characters who are actually.
Well, I was just gonna say, yeah. How do you see this relating to Scott? Because
I mean,
I read this comic when it came out, and
For you.
I remember vividly being very involved emotionally with the Scott Emma relationship. Because while this comic was publishing, I was in my first serious relationship, and I was like terrified of being a Scott. Like there was just this deep, closeted trans girl fear that I was going to grow up to become Scott Summers in this marriage.
and Stephanie, you asked before we started recording, and we got into your kitty stuff, and I didn't segue you out of it because you built such a great segue into Some
Yes.
Angels Falling. But you asked us like, what are the X-Men characters that we sort of overly identified with? And
Yes.
I definitely talk in episode one how for me for years that character was Scott Summers. And I used to do a lot of Scott Summers stuff and writing and thinking, not as much as, our friend Jay Edidin, but I did so much because I thought of myself as kind of this like hopelessly bottled up, desperate to please, but like I mean, Scott Summers is such an interesting character because Scott Summers has these strong values and strong opinions, but has so much emotional baggage that sometimes keeps him from executing that. And I'd like to think that my transition has kind of been me grappling with the fact that I identified so much with Scott Summers and trying to move away from my Scott Summersy tendencies. And this book is a great example of the kind of Scott Summers tendencies that I want to move away from.
Right.
This realization that I really should be working harder on being open with my emotions and stuff, because that's exactly what we're seeing here is Scott being unable to address his feelings and or unwilling is probably better than unable. So it's so interesting that you brought up that idea, and it is really funny because since I started to feel, I came to realizing that I was trans maybe a little later than some folks, but definitely it was the period of me starting to identify more with Kitty that I think absolutely kind of
Mm,
clued me in. So I'd like to say, I think Cyclops was the character I most identified with. Then it
hmm.
has slowly become Kitty for basically all the reasons Stephanie has said, but less eloquently put because I'm not a Harvard English professor.
You're pretty eloquent.
Well,
You're very eloquent,
well,
Becca.
thank you.
I wouldn't be doing this pod if you weren't. So
Okay,
go
well,
on.
thank you. I mean, and I was going to try to figure out a way that I could make a joke where I said that the character I most identified with was Charlie Cluster, aka Lady Phantom X, because I have to mention her once an episode.
Every episode. It's just started happening, so we're going with it.
Yeah,
Yes.
but it's so interesting that this idea does kind of take us into the Some Angels Falling. And Josie, I want to give you the chance to talk about the X-Men characters you relate to, but I do want to use this as a way to segue into
Yeah, I want to hear.
because I don't,
Yes.
the thing about Scott here is truly he can't seem to explain what his issue is with Jean. And it's
Hmm.
so interesting that Scott isn't afraid of Jean. Scott is afraid that Jean should be afraid of Scott, is
Yep.
basically what he
Correct.
says to Emma. And it's
Yep.
so interesting because, like, in the
Yep.
arc right before this, we literally see, I mean, the Phoenix two or three arcs ago, Phoenix first shows up in Grant Morrison's X-Men,
Yep.
but this is the arc right before this is where we literally see Phoenix be like, Jean Grey's just a house, like it's me, and Scott is like, yeah, no, 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 that stuff doesn't bother me. That stuff, what bothers me is me. I'm
Yes.
the
Yep.
problem.
Right.
And it's so funny because that is,
To coin a phrase,
Mhm.
yes,
Thank you for
exactly.
quoting Taylor.
Yeah, no, I was thinking the same thing. But it's so funny because Scott is so power-wise, Scott is so out of his depth.
Yes.
Exactly. Like compared to Emma or Jean or Charles or even Logan, to be completely honest. But like it's so much emotional baggage that he could view himself as being the threat in this situation when it's so obvious that to us the reader that he just needs to explain how he feels. But I know it's not
And
that easy.
communicate.
I know
Yeah,
it's not that
exactly.
easy because I spent,
No.
25 years feeling like Scott. So it's not easy. And
No.
I don't think Emma is a very good therapist.
Okay,
Shocking.
I want to drop about five different pins here, and then we're going to hear from Josie about her
Please.
character.
Yeah, I'm so sorry.
No, no, it's great. I love hearing you talk. I know what I think. I want to hear what you think. Okay, here are the pins. First, Bad Therapist and Audrey and Rich. Second, Taylor and Scott.
I love that one.
Right.
Now you're
Love that
speaking my
one.
language.
My language too. Third, me, Scott, and the Avengers. Fourth, Josie's over-identification characters.
I
And
can't wait. I have a
and
great answer, but yeah, let's keep going.
fifth, should I be writing these down?
It's the third Phantom X, isn't
Should I
it?
be? No,
It's
it's not.
Phantom X 3.
It is not. Okay. That therapist, me, Scott, and the Avengers, Josie's over-identification characters, Taylor and Scott. If that is not one of my children, I'm gonna send it to
Yeah,
voicemail.
take your time.
Okay.
Genuinely thought you
Right.
were asking if Taylor and Scott was like if you had a child named Taylor
It
Scott.
was one of your children, I know for a second.
No, no,
Yeah.
that's not. No, 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 no. Okay. Taylor and Scott, bad therapist, Josie's over-identification characters, me and the Avengers, and finally, and we must talk about this at some length. This is a visual medium, and we need to talk about John Paul Leon and Bill Sienkiewicz's
Oh,
art because it's so
Please.
beautiful,
Josie and I were talking about that
so
off mic.
everything.
Very
This
pretty.
is my favorite art team in the entire Morrison run. It's one of my favorite art teams. One of the great things about this period of X comics is that Marvel editorial figured out that if you ask Bill Sienkiewicz to pencil your issue, it will be delayed for 6 months. But
But you ask him to ink it.
if you ask him to ink it, it's going to be beautiful and within the weirdness tolerance of mainstream Cape comics.
It's
Yeah.
so interesting because if you had asked me, and Stephanie, we'll get back to your other pins, but I guess we're talking about art now. It's so interesting to me because if you had asked me before I started this reread, like, oh yeah, the main artist on the Morrison run is Frank Quitely, and then there's occasional sub-ins from EVS. But it's amazing how many times the artist shifts. Quitely does some of the arcs, and John Paul Leon and Igor,
Yeah. That guy.
Josie, what's his last
Bobic.
name?
Bobic?
Corday. I was waiting for you to say it. Yeah, it was
Oh,
Igor
Okay.
Corday.
yeah.
You're Corday,
And
yeah.
and like there's a whole murderer's row of talent and EVS on this book.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting, but I've
Mm.
always been a Sienkiewicz girl.
Yes.
I mean, New Mutants is my favorite X-Men series.
New Mutants Volume 1, number 21 is the greatest superhero comic ever published.
Which one is that one?
Slumber Party.
Huh? Oh, Slumber Party rules, 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 rules,
It's a
rules.
great comic, yes. But go on.
I think Sienkiewicz is so good. Again, like I said, New Mutants is my favorite, but also like God, the stuff he did on Daredevil is so good. And I don't even really like Daredevil, but just looking at the
Well, I mean, there's Electra Assassin. I mean, you could go on forever. It's just one, and he's a nice guy.
Oh, I love that.
I've met him many times, and he's one of the nicest gents I've met in comics. I, don't know him super well, but whenever I've encountered him, he's been very kind, and he genuinely loves drawing. He'll just do it. Like it's
I
just
love that.
beautiful. Anytime somebody dies, a celebrity dies, you go to his Facebook and he'll have some beautiful portrait of the
Oh.
celebrity that he just does for, why not? But yeah, the art here is real. I don't want to underplay John Paul Leon though, because I'm a huge John Paul Leon stan. I think John Paul Leon was an underrated penciler, especially in this period, and the two of them mesh so well. I mean that
Perfect.
the scenes of the literal falling. I mean, it's called Some Angels Falling, and there's a lot of panels of Scott and Emma both literally and figuratively falling for each other and with each other. And the pictures of the sky and of the motion, the lines that are not exactly clean but are very angular. Yes, Becca.
You want to know the one panel from probably all of the Morrison run I remember best and think about the most?
What's that?
Is that panel in this issue where Beak is staring at space and is like, this is the
Oh,
best
yeah.
day ever.
That's a yeah.
That panel resonates with me so much. And that panel is such a great example of everybody on this creative team firing at all cylinders because that panel doesn't work without Morrison's writing getting us to love Beak and understand what this means, without, Jean Paul Leon's pencils, and without Sienkiewicz's inks, and the colorist, who we haven't mentioned.
I'm looking it up,
The colorist
and
I
is
apologize
stand
for
by.
not mentioning it in my
It is
little intro.
Chris Chuckry. Chris Chuckry, who I
yeah,
don't know.
But you need all of that stuff for that panel to work, and
that's
it's
right.
Hmm.
all off the charts. It's so good. I love Beak. I love Space. I love all of these creatives. I'm
It's
so
also
glad.
worth it's also worth shouting out Comicraft and Richard Starkings because if I recall correctly, this was the first issue of X-Men, of mainstream X-Men, as opposed to Ultimate X-Men, to be
Mhm.
printed in sentence case as opposed to all caps.
Oh yeah,
You might be right. It's
you're
I
certainly
correct.
could be wrong about it being the very first, but it was the beginning.
No, you're
the
correct.
Phantom X run is certainly all in caps. I see Phantom X right here talking about Jean Grey's
Yep.
pelvis in all caps.
Yep.
The beauty of mixed case, which I think is the other technical term for that,
Yeah,
mixed case
sure.
or sentence case, is that it's the first issue of an X comic ever where the lettering works without making you think that someone wants to be Tom Warzakowski or in fact is Tom Warzakowski.
Wait, who's Tom Warzakowski? I thought you I'm not getting that
The
reference.
letterer for the Claremont run.
Oh, got it.
Mm.
Sorry. Forgive
He's
me.
sometimes credited for Claremont's ability to be Claremont because he's figured out how to do
Right, to get
standard
everything
hand
cram
letter all
in.
caps and get all of those dialogue balloons, right?
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Um, and one of the if you want to really do an X story that's awesome that doesn't feel like you've got kind of Claremont leftovers, one of the challenges is having lettering that accommodates a lot of dialogue that doesn't say somebody went to school with Tom Warzakowski for 10 years. And this is the first time they do it because it's sentence case. But I also, now that we're talking art, it's not just the expressiveness and the way that conventionally hot, beautiful, and conventionally ugly people and teens and adults all get facial close-ups.
Mm.
On looking at the page, it's early in the issue. It's like page 4, where Archangel is teaching the Flyers.
Yes.
Look at the way the layouts work. Within page and from one page to the next, Leon and Sienkiewicz just hit it. You've got Angel looking at Beak, who's looking at Beak. Oh no, she's not even looking at Beak there. She's looking at everyone, and she has her face slightly tilted down, but her eyes are up because she's looking at Archangel, who's standing, and she says, I'm going to fly any damn way I choose. Who says you know what's best for me? And she's very, very conventionally beautiful. And then we see that she's standing up as she says it. And then you see Beak, who is looking down and can't meet anyone's eyes and looks like Beak. And then at the bottom of that page and the next page, and this is one of the reasons why, if you're reading this on Marvel Unlimited, it's a good idea, if you can, to look at the whole page layout and the individual panels. You see Beak and Angel and the other students looking out into the sky, but not up at space, at Angel flying. And then you see Beak, who's standing behind Angel, so he doesn't have to meet anyone's gaze, looking past Angel and past some other flyer who's flying. It's not Beak, up at the Shi'ar ship. And Beak says, maybe there a guy like me could seem normal.
Yeah.
And Angel is insulting him. And all of that speaks to the panel that Josie, you were talking about, which is the last Beak and Angel panel and last Beak and Angel phase page. It's the second to last page of the issue.
Oh, that was Becca that was talking about that one. But yes,
Sorry.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
I thought I said Becca. Becca was talking about that one. Sorry.
It's okay. We have similar names.
That's true.
Not. I just meant Becca. Where we get 3 panels of what could be a waffle iron, a 9-panel grid. Beak says, she kissed me. And it's almost the first time we've seen Beak look up instead of down.
Mm.
And then we see Angel with Beak still in frame, but out of earshot, winning her bet about kissing Beak. And then we see this very Sienkiewicz-y black and white space where Beak realizes that maybe he can do things and says, hello, universe, this is the greatest day of my life. And what we know that he doesn't know is that this was on a bet. But what we're going to know, and only the creative team knows, is that Angel is going to fall in love with Beak for real. And then we get a transition to a very, very differently laid out 2-panel, which means it could be drawn faster, last page, in which Emma is manipulating Scott. And Emma is an adult who should know better. And then Scott is suspicious where Beak is gullible, no pun intended. But the arcs are going to be similar. Where Scott says, sure, Jean. And I think it's the first time he's agreed to call Emma Jean.
Yeah, oh, absolutely it is.
Pretty kinky.
Yeah. And Emma is looking at Scott, but Scott is drawn as if he's looking at us. And it's as if he is looking at us and saying to us, the readers, who have viewed him as the one of very few morally trustworthy adults. And he's saying to us, the reader, I'm going to take a big risk and do something that seems conventionally really wrong and that Jean will not like. And it's the first time he's ever done something, I think, in his life that Jean doesn't want him to do.
You know what bothers me?
Including when he lets her die in 137. What bothers you?
What bothers me, I think, so we talked about in an earlier episode that when I read this arc for this run for the first time, I missed New X-Men annual Man in Room X. Because of the way Marvel Unlimited at least used to sort the annuals as different series than the series itself.
They still do, unfortunately.
Yeah, worst feature.
Not a great idea. Yeah.
Especially when you deal with some older stuff like Fantastic Four, where the annuals actually like 100% advance the story. But anyway, I wish, and I didn't know this at the time, this felt very much like the first time Scott was doing this, but he absolutely hooks up with her in Man in Room X. And even when Jean asks him about it and was like, did you sleep with Emma? He goes, she kept me up all night, which is like...
Right. I read that personally, as somebody who used to be a very repressed monogamous man before I became the fabulous whatever I am now. I think I read that as Emma tried to get Scott to sleep with her that first time, and they had an emotional affair type night. Like Scott resisted the sex and was thus able to say she kept me up all night and credibly not talk about sex because there was no sex to talk about. But he's cagey because he probably said a lot of stuff that... But then again, it is kind of odd. It kind of undermines the whammy of Some Angels Falling to have had that implication from before. Like, the idea here is this is Scott finally succumbing to temptation.
I have a confession to make, and then a series of questions and opinions. The confession is that I did reread a whole lot of the Morrison run to do this, but I didn't reread the annual.
Because it's not on Marvel Unlimited? Or, I mean, it is, but it's... Yeah.
It is. I just forgot to reread the annual because...
No, it's not very good. It was like... We struggled on that episode because there's just not much to talk about. Like,
so here's a question.
It introduces Zorn, but that's it. Yeah, go ahead.
here's a question, and like I have read it, but that was like years and years ago. My memory of having read it was that it had to take place after this issue. And when we think about when
Well,
annuals drop,
It can't. It
it
can't.
can't. It's a Kitty Pride problem. This book can't. The annual can't exist because it has Beast in it. Beast is supposed to be unconscious at that point in the run.
But it introduces Zorn, who's essential for solving the problems in Imperial. So
yeah,
Right.
you can't. It's where Scott frees Zorn from China.
And
right.
meets Zorn. Yeah.
So Zorn can't be in Imperial unless that comes first. But Imperial is also where Beast stops being unconscious.
Right. It doesn't add up. It feels like the annual was written by the nature of annuals in some way where it's like the story hadn't been fully developed
So
yet.
one thing is certain, it can't be after Some
Okay.
Angels Falling.
Okay. So here's another question. Scott is clearly agreeing to do something at the end of Some Angels Falling that
Yes.
he's never done before. And he's already stayed up all night talking with Emma.
Right.
Was Emma pretending to be Jean at this point?
What in Man in Room X? No, in Man in Room X, she walks into his. I was saying, one of the it's a Lionel Francis Yu panel, so it's a woman with her arms up, looking like a rhombus, but she's like leaning against the door, saying something, seductive while holding some
So we
champagne.
don't have a problem. So we absolutely don't have a problem. Emma's attempt under what she, at this point, under false and deceptive pretenses to be Scott's therapist has already begun.
Yes.
But what's really new in Some Angels Falling is the Jean masquerade. And that's
Yes.
what freaks
But it's
Scott out.
Well,
not it's not really a masquerade because he knows it's Emma.
he knows
I
it's
masquerade in the
Emma.
sense of dress up,
Okay,
pretend.
Yes,
okay.
it's a role play. It's a role play,
It's
Yeah.
a role
certainly.
play. It's a role play. That's what's new. That's what is a new level and feels like cheating in a new way. And
Right.
we may need to talk about the concept of an emotional affair,
Right, which is
which
very
is
complicated, very hard to
which
define.
which is hot
Well,
garbage.
especially in the context of this comic where,
Right.
I mean, not to get ahead of things, but like they're literally going to be like effectively having sex in the psychic realm.
Right.
So it takes emotional affair to a literal sense because you have a character who literally has the power to be inside of one's emotions.
And feel the
Right.
emotions. Right. Right.
Right.
I should also add, Scott did catch a glimpse of Logan briefly kissing Jeannie in Danger Rooms from
Oh.
afar. So maybe he feels
Thank
like
you.
there's some kind of permission structure with that.
And let me be clear, like I'm monogamous, but like I don't have a problem. Like there's no issue in theory with Scott being with Jean and also seeing Emma as long as he communicates it.
Right.
Right, but he
Right.
doesn't. It's no, he's doing really shitty poly. Like he's doing the worst poly ever.
He's well, there's even worse, but he's being really this is not
Of course
Fair.
there is, yeah.
this is not ethical non-monogamy.
No, it is very unethical
It is what
non-monogamy.
it is what happens when people who have been psychically destroyed by
Yeah.
the heteromonogamous system that we live under.
Oh, you mean the black bug? You mean the black bug room?
Yeah, the Black Bug Room.
The
Well,
heteromonogamous system we all live under.
I
That's it.
mean,
I mean, listen, that was my Black Bug Room for
Yeah.
It was my
for
black bug room for a long
29
time.
years.
I'll tell you that.
Everyone's got a Black Bug Room.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
mine was the hetero-cis normativity.
yeah.
But anyway, I interrupted you. Sorry. So
Yeah,
good.
no, it's okay. I would actually say that my black bug room is something different, but I definitely, and the people around me who have been damaged by the heteromonogamous cisnormative system we live under, and it's hard to get out of that. It's especially hard to get out of that when you've never seen anyone get out of that and you don't have models and you don't know what the fuck you're doing and you're going to break
Yep.
some things and you're going to make some big mistakes.
Yep.
And one of the many things I love about the Scott Emma arc, of which this issue is a real, can arcs have hinges? They can't. Of which this issue is a really important load-bearing point.
They have those.
Good. We
Okay.
do. Yep.
A hinge is that, of course, if you've never seen anyone do something that you need to do for your own psychic health, you're going to do it badly and you're going to hurt yourself and
Yeah.
other people. Scott and Emma have never seen what healthy poly looks like.
That's right.
Scott has never even seen what good therapy looks like when he's a participant.
Hmm.
Scott has spent his entire life, not even his entire adult life, his entire life, having to mask 24/7.
Hmm. Literally.
Mask in both senses of that term with K and a C.
Yeah, literally and figuratively.
Scott's visor is as good a figure for his unusual emotional makeup as Kitty's phasing power is for hers.
Which is also why the
Yes.
ruby contact lenses are terrible anyway. That won't be discussed. Continue.
It actually is discussed here and is something the colorist, and I assume that's in the script, does beautifully, where Scott actually corrects Emma about how it should look.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Such a good piece of optics. It's so good. Everything about this is so
Optics.
good. And people getting out of, and I mean, if that's not actually how optics work, you can say it's Scott's retinas because Scott has mutant retinas.
It's true.
But
Yeah.
it's the metaphor there that draws on actual optics is that things from inside the ruby glasses look different.
Yeah.
And it's a
Yes.
color subtracting filter.
Yes.
People who were trying to get out of this system that is so bad for so many of us and figure out a better way to live with your body and your romantic and erotic potentials.
Absolutely.
If you don't have a guidebook or an example or someone with the self-possession of, let's say, Storm hanging out helping you, and maybe even if you do, are going to fuck up and break things and hurt one another. And Scott knows that that's going to happen and decides he's going to take the risk anyway because his future and his psychic health and the hope that his future will be better than his past are worth something. And he's taking that risk even though he knows it's wrong. And that
It's a
is quite the
transgression. Yeah.
fucking leap.
It
And
is.
I will defend, I won't call Scott's decisions here ethical, but I will do the work of realist fiction here and defend and sympathize to the ends of the earth. Because of
Yes.
course he's going to do that. And that's something he has to do. And it's
Yes.
hard for me to imagine him doing anything different. And what we know, rereading the run is in the future, is that this is going to permit a kind of growth for Emma that she's never had before because exposure to that kind of goodness changes you. And
Mhm.
Emma's never been that close to that kind of goodness.
That's so interesting. Scott's making a transgression that takes him farther away from good morals than he's ever had. And
Mm-hmm.
Emma is taking a step towards good morals by hooking up with Scott. They're meeting somewhere in the middle. It's kind of beautiful.
That's correct. That's what's happening.
And I love their relationship for what it's worth. I mean, aside from the fact that it is non-ethical, non-monogamy, but
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
do like how they bring each other into this sort of center space that you guys are talking about. And again, I know I'm the only one who ever talks about the like, I'm not the only one who ever talks about it, but I'm the only one who likes it. But like, I think that was part of the strength of Schism as well, was that I feel like Scott's team only works because he and Emma have met in the middle for it.
Yeah.
We also have your 5 pins to get to, Steph.
Yeah, well, we just got to one of them.
I know, and I want to tell myself identification character, but
Okay,
you
I
tell
know
me.
it's Dark Phantom X. Anyway, continue.
That's right.
wait, really?
No.
No.
Okay.
Dark
So,
Phantom X
okay.
didn't even exist when I was a child.
Okay, yeah, Becca's just fucking with me. So, yeah, we got to one of the pins. We're gonna get to all the pins.
Mhm.
Okay. We have 4 pins. Which pin would you like to start with,
So,
Stephanie?
the first one is the fifth pin, which is we just need to talk about how we live in a bendy world.
I know, I love that line. That's one of the all-time great lines. Why can't everyone just be straight with me? Because we live in a bendy world, my
And
dear.
that's correct. And of course, out of context, why can't everyone just be straight with me?
Yeah, no
Scott says
kidding.
twice, like because people aren't straight, including you, Scott.
Including you, Scott.
The dialogue is so good that we need to remind ourselves, because comics are a visual medium, to talk about the perfection of the 5 page wide panels, followed by 5 more page wide panels in a 2 page spread that Leon and Sienkiewicz and Connery are making happen. where we go from inside the plane and Scott's parachuting. And of course, none of this is really happening. It's all psychically happening, but it feels real and it looks real and it's there. And the way that Scott is terrified and yells, "Stop this," and can't tell the difference between what's symbolic and what's real, which is how you know you're getting close to erotic experience and close to the core of the psyche. And the way
Yes.
that the green fields below them appear on panel 2 on the first page, and then we're just in the sky until we get to panel 5, the last panel on the second page. And that is how to draw comics. It's also how to
Yeah, it
color.
is.
It's perfect. And
It's
now
a
we can get
great,
back
it's
to
a
the other question.
visually,
Uh-huh.
yeah, I mean, it's just like it's one of those issues where you could just read it with even if you don't read it in your native language, you can get the basic gist of what's happening and it's beautiful.
So what you can't get without the dialogue is why Emma's doing this.
Mm.
And of course you can't because Scott doesn't know either, which brings us to one of those pins, which is bad therapy.
Ah, bad therapy.
And
Lots of it out there.
of course you shouldn't seduce your patients.
Oh,
I think we can
hold
all
on.
agree on
I
that.
gotta go fix some things. No, I'm kidding.
Right. Of course you shouldn't seduce your patients. Of course there's a boundary.
Yeah.
The asymmetrical boundary where if you're an ethical therapist, your patient or client has to know much less about you
Yes,
than
very
you know
good
about them
point.
is weirdly being maintained here because Emma is the one who knows and Scott is the one who's finding out. And there is a history in real life of extremely important coming out and figuring out how to be yourself in a relationship work being done through wildly unethical therapists that extends to the career of Adrienne Rich, who we now know the first woman she seriously dated and the woman
Hmm.
who Rich's 21 love poems are about was her therapist.
Hmm.
No, I didn't know that. I missed
That's
this.
why she wouldn't say
You're
during,
not a Harvard professor of
well,
poetry.
you're a biographer though. You stop. Becca's making fun of me.
I'm not making fun of you,
We would
Stephanie.
never make fun of you. I
Okay.
genuinely mean that. We
So
would not.
Josie writes biographies. I
I
don't write
do.
biographies. One of the many reasons that biographies are good and we need them is that you find out things like 21 Love Poems by Adrienne Rich, the
Mhm.
great sort of here's how to write a lesbian love poem of the 70s, was written to and about Rich's therapist because they were dating. And
Fascinating.
again, and this is 1973, 74, that is a real life example of the thing that Scott and Emma is a Cape Comics example of, which is when you are trapped in this system that hurts everyone and
Yeah.
is bad and you have to break it and get out of it and you've never seen anyone break it and get out of it before and you have no idea how you're going to do it in a way that's screwy and seems wrong at the time and in
Yep.
retrospect and that hurts people, but the alternative is also intolerable, which is to stay in it forever because you don't want to be a bad person. And Scott has been living that way since he was 12 or something. And he just can't live that way anymore. And that's
Yeah.
the work that this issue in particular is doing.
Yes. I would agree with you on that.
Thank you. And now, Josie, who is your mutant?
Oh, my over-identification character.
Yep.
I too over-identify with a time-traveling member of the X cast who is not, resolutely not in this run. And that is Nathan Dayspring Esconison Summers. That is Cable. Cable
Whoa.
was my homeboy when I was a youth. And I will go to my grave saying that estrogen can save Cable. I think Cable is a very classic case of a trans woman who goes into the military in order and gets really beefed up and really roided out to prove that she's a man. And then eventually, for me, in my head canon, the arc for Nathan has to be that Nathan becomes, and this is where it ties into you, Stephanie, and your favorite character, or your over identification character, I should say. It all comes back for me with Cable to this great slash terrible miniseries, The Adventures of Cyclops and Phoenix from 1994,
Yeah.
which was written by Scott Lobdell, terribly written, and drawn by Gene Ha in a way that changed my life. It was utterly beautiful. It's the origin comic of Nathan growing up in the far, far, far future. And for me, the fourth issue of that comic utterly I want to say it transformed me. It gave me the strength to get all the way to where I needed to get decades later. And that's
Yeah.
the scene where Rachel appears as kind of a psychic ghost to Nathan while Nathan is dying of the techno-organic virus, which is drawn so horrifyingly and beautifully by Gene Ha. But Nathan is lying there dying, and Scott, who he doesn't know is his actual father, just thinks is his adoptive father. Scott is holding his hand and just hoping that he doesn't die. And what gets Nathan to the other side is Rachel appears to him. He knew Rachel briefly when Rachel was old Mother Ascani. This is
Yeah.
old lady Rachel. And that scene where she, as a young woman in the psychic vision, appears to him and says, every single day you're going to be fighting for your life against this thing, this techno-organic virus.
Yeah.
But it's what you have to do. You're not going to be as powerful as you would be otherwise. You're going to have this thing eating at you and clawing at you, and you're going to fight it with your soul
Hmm.
every single day. But you can do it. You're a Summers. You can do anything.
Yes. Yes.
That part made me
Yeah.
just weep. Every time I go back to it, I get to that panel. He's drawn in such a beautifully feminine and lithe way, this child Nathan, so drastically different than the vision of Cable that we're familiar with. He's this twink, basically. He's this tiny little smooth creature. And I really think that there's this beautiful trans way you could write Cable if they had the guts. If they had the balls to not have the balls, you could really have this story where Nathan figures out that he has to be Rachel, not just be the mother, not just because like that's the thing is like Cable eventually becomes this almost father, but really kind of mother figure to this baby, and I think that if they went whole hog, you'd have and got rid of the hog, you'd have Cable saying, "I'm a mother. Like I have to be what Rachel was to me at that point when I needed her."
I think
And
that's, sorry, go on.
no, that's I just over-identified with him, not knowing anything about this trans headcanon I had in my head.
Yeah.
I just thought that scene was beautiful, and it gave me the strength to fight off the gender dysphoria for the next 2 decades.
That's exactly right. I know enough cis dads who are trying to be good dads in various ways
Yeah,
that I really like the later Cable and Hope stuff.
it's great. Yeah, I completely agree.
Yeah. But no, what I want for this is you should get to write Exile
Oh,
because
wouldn't that be fun?
well,
Oh
they should
God.
give you Exiles because just like Cable is one of those people where you really need alternate versions of him, and I don't mean X-Man.
I
Um,
like Nate Gray. Don't you dare insult Nate Gray in front of
no,
me.
no,
But
no, no.
anyway,
But
keep
I'm
going.
saying that Nate Gray is not the alternate version of Cable that we need.
No, 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 no,
We
no.
need we need a
Fem Cable.
trans mom Cable, and the way to do that is in an Exile story.
Hey, if I get that, the only gig, there are two gigs I would take at Marvel. Exiles, so I get to just fuck around. But the real one I want is I want to write the most real ass Jewish Magneto story, something so real and Jewish that the ADL calls me anti Semitic. But that's a whole separate thing that we'll get into when we get to the end of this run.
Honestly, at this point, all you have to do is sneeze into a social media platform for the ADL to call you anti-Semitic. But
I know, but like I really, really there but thank you. I really appreciate that vote of confidence. I would love to write Femme Cable. The other character I identify with in the character I identify with in this run, I should say,
yeah,
is Beast. Beast, who has the most trans arc, I think, of anybody in this run, because it's not that we start in media res with Beast having literally transitioned, not necessarily gender wise, but the body is different and the gait is different, the entire
uh-huh.
nature and aura is different, and Beast loves it. That's the wonderful thing, is it's not like this the thing type thing or Hulk where it's like, oh, this man, this monster,
Yeah,
why have I changed into this
right,
horrible cat beast? Beast
right.
is like, I think I look rather dignified. This is
Yes,
good for me. I look
yeah,
great. And everyone tries to tell Beast that Beast looks like I mean, not everyone, but like the press and Cassandra Nova, these
right,
voices of
right.
society and depression, keep trying to tell Beast, you look ugly, you look
That's right.
hideous.
That's right.
And that's a very God. I mean, we're not talking about that issue, but when Cassie goes after Beast and tries to get him to sort of devolve, it was
Yeah,
like, I know that voice in the back of my head. I've heard it plenty of times.
I know what that is. Yeah,
I
that's
know
right.
what that is.
That's right. That's
So
exactly right.
anyway, that's my answer is Cable in general, but when it comes to this run, definitely Henry McCoy.
I love that. Okay, we've got 2 pins left.
What are the pins?
So the quick pin is Taylor and Scott, and I can do
Tell
it with a
us.
broken heart, which
Two
is the best.
tall, two tall icons. Anyway,
Too
continue.
tall.
I can do it with a broken heart, which is the best song on her best album,
Okay.
Agree with half of that.
and that is extremely Scott, right?
Please say
100%.
more. For the
100%.
listeners who are not Swifties, because there's not always 100% crossover between Grant Morrison geeks and Swifties,
No,
what
there's
are
not.
the lyrics that you're referring to?
You can read my mind. She must be having the time of her life. She's out there. She's lead. She's the star. She's
Yeah.
getting everything that she wants, but she's absolutely crushed inside. And if she doesn't keep that down at the same time as she's acting it out by singing about it, but keep the real struggle inside, then she won't be able to do the thing that she absolutely has to do because so many people in so many frames of reference are depending on her. And that song, of course, ends. There's no bridge because she doesn't know where to go next. And instead of having a proper bridge, the song ends with Taylor saying, "Try and come for my job," which in the
Mm.
recorded version is almost an aside, but in the live versions is Taylor stepping to the edge of the stage and saying to hundreds of thousands of people in a stadium, "Try and come for my job," because it is having done and chosen to do all of the professionalization and all of the danger room training and all of the stuff that she's done, which comes both from privilege and from practice and from pain.
Mhm.
And they both know, honestly, that they've had a lot of privilege in different ways. Um,
Sure.
God knows Scott's seen a lot of mutants who have been raised in, poverty and ways where they would destroy themselves instead of becoming child soldiers. No one else could do this. No one else could do my job.
Right.
And that is so Scott.
Yes.
And part of being Scott is, and part of what I love about Scott, and part of why Scott continues to be one of, I would say, exactly 4 he, him pronoun figures that I over-identify with.
Mm.
And I can tell you the other 3, but they're not X-Men. They're
Okay.
not.
Just
Okay. I can,
yeah.
if you want, I can tell you.
Sure. Go ahead, please. Yes.
Spock, Saru, and Kermit the Frog.
I don't know who the
Wow.
second one is.
Saru.
Saru from Discovery.
Oh,
Right.
I haven't watched Discovery yet.
It's really good.
I haven't watched it either, but I hear good things about
Yeah.
Saru. People like, yeah.
5th season's a bit of a disappointment, but still watch it. Anyway, but Scott is someone whose repression is inseparable from his commitment to a very, very challenging job that has both pedagogical and sort of personnel and military action components. And people really are depending on him all the time. And one of the reasons why Scott as a character works so well is that he is simultaneously dangerous in terms of his mutant power and underpowered, right? If Jean loses
Yeah.
control, the Earth dies. If Scott loses control, some people in his field of vision die. But if Scott loses control emotionally, maybe the Earth dies.
Mm.
And
I like that.
you were talking about the Morrison Beast as part of your coming out story. Scott, Emma, Jean is integral to my coming out story.
Mm.
Really, really integral, especially since I did not read this run as it came out. The
Yeah.
first time I read the entire Morrison run was probably within a few months of when I started medical transition. I can't tell you which
No
side, but
kidding.
this was, and this is a run that's about, and this is an arc that's about getting out of the cis mono hetero gender system.
Yes, it is.
And Scott doesn't know how to do it without hurting people.
Right.
And it's also, and I want to be careful about the way in which I put this.
Yeah, go ahead.
A lot of us figure out who we are online
Yes.
in ways that are intimate but can't be physical before we figure out how to be who we need to be with our loved ones
God,
and
that yes.
in our physical world.
You
And
are so right. And this kind of psychic sex is sort of not prefiguring
well,
because cybersex was
it
happening
either
then.
yeah, it is sex, but it's not.
Right,
It is cheating, but it's not, but it
right.
is. It's not, but it is. It is, oh, look, there is a space that does not have corporeal reality where I can interact with people in a way that seems like a really dodgy fucking kind of pretending, but is also real. And
Yes.
Scott happens to be, I think, cis. I think Morrison thinks he's cis. There are
Yeah.
reasons to think he's transmasculine, but the account of Scott as transmasculine has him as someone who transitioned long ago, and I'm going to leave that to
Yeah,
Jay.
you could do all kinds of headcanon with Scott's masculinity, but the masculinity at least is
Right,
so key.
right, and it doesn't, and that's not that is connected to his particular form of repression,
Yes.
but
I
the
love that you kind of said that fast and I couldn't hear whether it was repression or oppression because it's both.
well, both, yeah, yeah. This particular arc is more about his repression than his oppression, but
Yes.
of course they are intimately connected because we live in a society.
And we know from reading X-Men what Scott's been through.
Right. And this is about figuring yourself out in a made up non-physical space
Yeah.
before you can figure yourself out in real life. And the story is not,
That is so true.
Yeah, absolutely. God, I'm loving this because
I love this read. This is the most fascinating fucking read.
we all
and
did
it,
it, and it's why
Yeah, we all did it.
it's
Yeah.
why
yeah,
online friends are so important to, to us trans people. And
yeah,
Absolutely. I came out on Twitter like accidentally almost,
I mean, it was, again, like, Stephanie, like, I feel like you were a small part of the early days of my transition. And,
yeah,
again, it's because you were someone I had met online and had context for as being a trans person online, something that I didn't get to experiment with and play with in person because I didn't know as many trans people in person.
Yeah, me too. Most of the trans people I've known have been people I know in the psychic plane from putting on Cerebra
yeah,
and looking for other mutants.
right, right. Literally, yeah. I mean, there's a reason it's called Cerebra. And for me, because the real world timeline's a bit different, it happens to be the Jay and Miles Discord rather
Yeah.
than
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Cerebra, but that's what we're talking about. And also, Becca, what you're talking about with your coming out process and how we knew each other when you were figuring things out. Remember how I was saying that whether I like it or not, I'm almost always either in a student position or in a teacher position?
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
You can be friends with your people who are like your students. You can be friends with people who've been in a student position. But I felt that a little bit.
Yeah.
Becca, I hope that doesn't compromise your autonomy for me to say that on air.
Oh, wait, I don't understand what you're saying. So my
Yeah, I don't quite
autonomy
get
is
it
Oh,
either. I'm sort of
okay.
nodding along knowing
my autonomy is great
Your autonomy is great, and I celebrate your autonomy. But what you said about me being
because I'm just too dumb
no,
to
no, 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 stop that. You're
I'm
teasing me.
teasing myself.
No, what you said about me already being like at least providing the outward appearance of emotional and institutional security and like already having transitioned when we met,
right,
and you
right,
were like,
right.
"Oh, Stephanie is doing this. Maybe I can do this."
I know that I've had that with people. Like,
Yeah,
I've seen people transition and gone, oh, well, interesting. I guess I could do that. But I think more often lately, because I have this big platform and I was
yeah,
already somewhat well known by the time I
yeah,
transitioned,
yep,
I've gotten a lot of notes from people, not saying like you transed me, but like I saw that you could do what you're doing with gender. And I was like, oh, maybe I can do something with gender,
yep,
which is
yeah. We get
nice.
to, yeah,
Now that I'm a teacher
yeah.
and
Right.
I'm a
Oh,
public figure,
you're literally a teacher. Yeah,
that absolutely happens to me
Yeah.
where students and one student did come up to me and go, Miss Petunia, you made me trans. And I was like, you are
no, I
never
didn't.
saying that to anyone in the world ever
Yeah,
again.
literally never say that. But like by providing a model, you can at least allow the imagination to go in a direction that it didn't know it could go.
Yeah, and that's what she meant. But
Correct.
again, and also, again, I'm not certainly nowhere near as big of an account as Josie, but I do find it happens to me online all the time, just in the sense that I'm a moderate account in terms of size, and I post a lot of selfies, so people
And
people do
Yeah.
come to me looking for help all the
and
time.
you look great. And you look
You do
great.
look great. For me, the thing that people most often say is that they are very comforted by the fact that I've kept my body hair.
Mm.
Yeah.
This brings me to the beast of it all. Like this is one of the reasons why on this read through I have over identified with Beast because and I mean our listeners know that the cover art is me as Beast because that fur really means something to me.
I
Like
love that.
it really does, and in a way that I hadn't thought of before I was trans. Like when you're identifying as a man, having a lot of body hair is just sort of like, okay, that person has a lot of body hair, but it's a man, so whatever. But when you're a woman, you stand out and people misgender you and they get lots of things wrong. You're taking a big risk. I am very much a non-passing trans woman, despite being beautiful and very feminine, because I don't get rid of my chest hair and I wear low-cut dresses. And for me, I feel like Henry McCoy in this run, where I'm like, I think I look distinguished.
I love that. And you
I
do.
don't give a shit what you think.
You do, and you look great. And
Thank
that's
you. I
all of
appreciate
us.
that.
I mean, all of us who aren't, Nicole Maines or someone have
Right. I
something
mean, like,
that.
look, people look the way they look when they trans. And for me, my transition has led to a thing where I don't have facial hair anymore. I used to have a beard, even early in transition, I did. But having that fur is a statement, and it's something that puts me in a mindset, to use your Victorian, realist ideas here, where I can identify with Beast even more than I ever did before because the fur has always been what makes, not always, since he got the blue fur, that's always been a huge part of the Beast character is that of all of the X-Men, he's the one who, while being quote unquote white, is not white passing.
That's right.
He
That's right.
passes, he's not normative passing. He passes as blue and furry, which is like I'm red and furry, but it's the same deal. Like we're obscure creatures that you're not used to seeing,
That's right.
and people instantly start having ideas about you the minute they see that fur.
And
So
and Beast,
anyway,
yeah, and Beast also like transitioned to that, right? Like Nightcrawler's always
yes,
been blue and furry. Nightcrawler's
yes,
really
of course.
blue and furry is very different. And there's that moment, which has been a big moment for I think a lot of us in Uncanny 130, where Nightcrawler just says, "I don't want to use the image inducer anymore."
Yeah, yeah, it's
But now,
beautiful.
now we're becoming a Claremont Run podcast.
No, 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 no.
Hey,
But
but,
you
but
have to talk about that stuff because I hadn't read the Claremont run when I read all these Morrison
oh
comics.
wow.
Well, it wasn't easily available. Like you could
Oh, because you were reading it when they came out.
Yeah,
I
Yeah,
was
and
reading when it
and
came out and Marvel was terrible at reprints back
and
I
in
then.
know.
2001, you couldn't even use like Amazon or whatever. I mean,
No, you could use Amazon.
let alone you couldn't go to a bookstore either. They didn't trade paperbacks barely existed at the time.
No, you
Yeah.
had to get individual back issues
Yep.
ordered through mail or at a comic book store in the long boxes. So I
Yeah.
read like scattered issues of the mega Claremont run, but most of my early knowledge of all that stuff was filtered through writers who had grown up on the Claremont run
That's right.
or who had been peers of Claremont. And by
That's
the
right.
time they were writing the comics I was writing, had come to sort of want to be in not opposition, but in dialogue with Claremont and go in this sort of
Yeah.
different direction. And Morrison definitely falls in that first category, somebody who grew up reading Claremont
Right. That's
and
right.
wanted to shift that stuff. So it's
Yeah.
always interesting to me to talk to people who have a more intimate and longstanding knowledge of the Claremont run. I just didn't have that. I knew Claremont as a name, but I think the first Chris Claremont comic I read was the late 90s X-Men run. Like, because that was
He was so good then. He was on definitely his
Yeah.
best
he was
stuff.
on fire and he loved his job. He was so happy with
The
no.
90s Claremont run.
Oh
That is what
man, it
everyone
was
agrees.
rough.
Okay. So clearly bonus episode where we just cover mechanics. But
I
Please,
love that.
please, please.
I mean, I'll put it in my calendar as soon as you send me a link.
Stephanie, mechanics. God, I'm always thinking about mechanics. As I'm just pulled my karma out of storage while
Yeah.
during the break.
I also want to say that at some point, if we are doing bonus episodes, Stephanie, very seriously, we would have you back on because I already have, I haven't even told Becca this. I have like a whole catalog of things that are informal sequels or satires of New X-Men in the Morrison run. One of them is Claremont's X-Men: The End, which very interestingly, because Claremont, and I can say this, this is on the record, and Claremont has said it to me, hates the Morrison run. Like
Of
cannot, was
course.
really
Ooh.
insulted by the
Of
Morrison
course.
run.
Well, to be fair,
Of
the
course.
Morrison run, the manifesto
It's like fuck
is like
you.
fuck Claremont.
And
Right.
and I mean, he's historically not liked anyone taking his characters, and I believe he's claimed that he didn't read Krakoa and that he feels possessive about them, and of course he
Oh,
does.
he's very
But part
possessive.
of
But that's what's
But
but let me finish.
that was the whole I mean, like even as far back as X Factor, him being
Oh, yeah.
pissed that they brought back Jean and Scott for X
But here's
Factor,
what's interesting.
and wanted it to be about Dazzler. But anyway,
I haven't read X-Men The End yet, but I was just from doing wikiing the third volume, which was Claremont getting to write the X-Men ending that he had always wanted to write,
Yep.
is who's the villain of volume 3, the final volume? Cassandra Nova,
no
which I'm
kidding.
sure is a stand-in for
I
Grant
didn't read
Morrison.
X-Men the End either.
I haven't read it yet, but I'm sure that's going to be a metaphor for Morrison trying to ruin his legacy.
One thing that I would love to do in this sort of bonus stuff, besides, I guess apparently we have to do mechanics.
Yeah.
I mean, and I'm always talking about, anyway, I want to do the first arc of X-Men Red with you because I feel like, so X-Men Red
Was
was
when Jean, that's when Jean comes back, right? Am I recall correctly?
It's the Jean fronted X team. It's like Jean, X-20, Laura,
Yeah,
and
Laura.
Honey Badger, and I forget who else because it wasn't very good.
Trinary.
Trinary, thank you.
Yeah.
The
Trinary.
Um,
Well,
new
I
I,
forgot.
character,
I
Trinary.
I have to go be a
But
mom. The
Oh,
last
go be a mom.
pin,
Let's
the
do a
last
sign off.
pin, the last
Let's do it.
wait. No, I mean not like this second, but like in the
Oh,
next five
okay.
minutes. The last pin that we haven't gotten to is the feelings that Becca was talking about with Scott and the performance of a masculinity that is intrinsically dysphoric and has to be shed.
Take it away. I want to hear this.
That is not my experience of Scott. It is my experience of the Vision.
mm,
Oh, wow. Even leaving the X franchise entirely, sort of.
Yeah, I no longer identify with the Vision, poor guy. I still over-identify a little bit with Scott. And Kitty looks at Scott and says, "Wow, I don't want to become that." And that is even
Yeah.
canon if you read the Fred Van
Yeah.
Lente written Wolverine First Class, which if you
great
only
run.
Day issues, the Van Lente stuff is good. There's a separate
I haven't read that run, but Van Lente is terrific.
yeah, it's I think it's the first 12 or 13 issues, and then there's a couple more issues that are not as good,
Well, that's
and
part of the Schism era, correct?
it is, but
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
Wolverine First Class is all set in the past.
Oh, Wolverine First Class. I was thinking of Wolverine and the X-Men, which was,
No.
yeah,
No,
I
that's during
apologize.
the Uncanny Avengers era. I don't know. Who cares? Keep
Yeah,
going.
but Wolverine First Class is set during the Claremont run, and it's like untold stories. It's almost like a relaunch of Unlimited. But there
Yeah.
is a great story where it's set around Uncanny 150, where Kitty and Scott and Logan are on an island and they have to fight some kind of evil temple and they beat the evil temple. And
Sure. Like you
Kitty is
do.
thinking about her costume, and it is the answer to the question, why does she keep her training costume? And the answer is that keeping her training costume is a way of her saying, I want to be like Logan, who is not completely defined by his role in the X-Men, rather than growing up to be Scott, who has never been anything else.
Wow.
It's a great issue.
Wow.
And
I love
it
that.
is part of Kitty's story, which is not in the Morrison run, and part of Scott's story, which is absolutely in this issue, that Scott can figure out his romantic life and start dating Emma and liberate himself and free himself of responsibility for Jean and for her power set, as well as freeing himself of certain kinds of mononormativity. But what Scott can't walk away from, because it will always be Scott, is that he is the war leader and the team strategist and the person who is in charge of what are the X-Men going to do whenever they are in physical danger of physically defending mutants. And this is more of a Spencer Ackerman kind of question. That also
Yeah.
speaks to Civ Mill relations because Scott, as an adult, is aware that as the military leader of the X-Men, he should not be the civilian leader.
Yeah.
unless there is an existential threat and everything is military, which is what the Bendis Uncanny is about. And this is why the Morrison run speaks so beautifully to everything that came after it.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah, we can end there if you want. Let's do this again.
Let's just really quickly say goodbye and ask Stephanie, where can people find you and what should they look for from you?
Okay, I am on Blue Sky frequently and Instagram less frequently as Not Quite Hyde Park, all one word. And they can look for my books of poetry by me, which are full of mutants, especially the most recent one, We Are Mermaids. They can look for my book about queer poetry since Stonewall, Super Gay Poems, out from Harvard Press in April 2025. So it's in bookstores. And they can also look for Taylor's version, The Musical and Poetic Genius of Taylor Swift, which will be published by Basic Books on October 15th. Stay in touch.
We love you. Thanks so much for being with us. And you go now. We will do our own sign off here.
We love you. Thank you so much for having me. Let's do this again.
Absolutely.
Peace. Bye.
Okay, bye.
So anyway,
Well, that was
Josie,
cool. I just want to say our listeners couldn't see it, but the laptop was closing and it was like being on a roller coaster with the camera. Anyway,
let's talk about what we're going to be talking about next, because next week's episode, we are just talking about New X-Men 132, which is Ambient Magnetic Fields.
yes.
Am I correct? Yes. So
It's a beautiful, beautiful issue. We will be having a great guest for that. And I'm very curious to see how that goes as well.
Josie, did you realize, I'm seeing this on Marvel Wiki right now, release date of Ambient Magnetic Fields was September 11th, 2002.
I don't remember that, but that is not surprising at all.
Boy, does that put that comic in an interesting new context.
Wow.
I mean, it says here cover date November 2002, but release date September 11th, 2002.
Wow. I don't remember
Because
that.
you know the cover dates are.
I remember that day. But I don't, and I'm sure I went to pick up my comics that day, but I don't. Well, we'll talk about it next time.
Yeah, there's a lot, and we're gonna have a lot to talk about
Yes.
there as well. Oh, you know what I realized? We didn't ask Stephanie if she thinks Logan is hot.
We can maybe get like a voice.
I'll text her.
Why don't you ask her and we can get a voice note that we can pop in?
Okay, it's important to me.
Yes.
Anyway, Josie, do you have anything else you want to add before we wrap
just
up?
come find me and the pod and everybody and the whole family.
Oh, right, we should do our plugs.
Yeah, I would love it if you'd follow me on Blue Sky, and that is josie.zone, like the Twilight Zone. You can also go to my personal website, which is, guess what? Josie.zone, that exact string of characters. And you can find my last book at ringmasterthebook.com. Most importantly, you can find our show website at herecomestomorrow.net.
And you can find me on Blue Sky at Tall Girl Petunia. And you can find some of my other writing on toughpigs.com, as well as my new podcast that is either out or finished with season 1 or hasn't been released yet because we've been having website issues, so Lord knows when that's releasing. A Prairie Dawn Companion, which is a podcast about the Muppets and the 1970s and feminism.
Fantastic.
So definitely check that out. But thank you so much, Josie. Thanks for chatting.
Yes, thank you. This was great.
I'm sorry I called you Dark Phantom X.
You know, I've been called worse, Becca. I've been called worse. And until next time, folks, just remember, burn away what doesn't work. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone.